Um, yeah, it led me down this road that is out. So now I'm in Bonnie Oaks
Ben, we
driveway.
can hear you.
Okay. Well, you didn't
You're
even
lost,
warn.
sounds like.
I'm not lost. Yeah. I've tried to go
You're
down
being
such
led
a
down a
smooth
road that you
road
didn't
that,
know. I heard.
well, I tried to use Waze to get here
Mute
quicker, and
yourself,
that was
Ben.
not a good choice. Bye.
What? I never heard him say, yes, leading me down the road. Okay. Yeah. He's muted.
There he goes. That's
Oh,
what I
there's
was
Marco.
doing.
You about to miss out.
Hey, yes. Would it be possible to tell what percentage this number represents? In other words,
Capacity.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Same thing you were saying, right?
Yes.
You okay? I just want to make sure you. Okay. Y'all ready? We'll now call the Hamilton County Schools Board Facilities Committee meeting to order for today. So, Marco, you was late for the one meeting that you've been fussing about all year long. But anyway, tonight we are going to begin what I anticipate to be a long series of discussions as it relates to facilities here in Hamilton County and in Hamilton County schools. A few weeks ago, we were presented with, and I asked you all to bring this today. If you don't have it, Sherry does have copies of this, but we were presented with the school facilities working group recommendations, which were recommendations that were compiled from the working group that was led by Mayor Wamp and made up of some community members, county commission, and county government. We've all had time to review this. We've all received feedback of some type from the community as it relates to the recommendations that were presented from this working group. But I wanted, now that we have these, and it had always been my desire to start the next facilities discussion once we got these. We know what our previous information, or the previous information that we were given back during the MGT study. We know what community members and teachers and principals and students and parents share with us on probably a weekly, if not daily basis about facilities needs in our schools and the various districts that we represent. So I wanted to take this time to allow board members that are present, and I will say this for the record and for the community, 2 of our board members are not able to physically be here with us tonight. However, y'all can see they are with us via Zoom tonight. After our new policy passed, we do have the ability to do that for a certain number of times, and it be applicable. So Chairwoman Robinson is here with us, and Ben Connor is here with us. I think Ben is driving, so we don't want him to be illegal in that sense, but he can hear us. They wanted to participate, and so we were able to make that happen for them as well. So I'm going to open up the floor to my peers to share any thoughts or concerns or feedback that they received. I will say this, this is not a session, before we get into that, this is not a working committee session that we will take public feedback from, but we're gonna talk about when that time will come, what that looks like, and how we will go about doing that, because that is most important for us in this process and as we go along in making our decisions and recommendations to the board as a whole, and what we will then present to Superintendent Robertson and Assistant Deputy Superintendent Stewart to, of course, take to the County Commission. So, got to get used to this box, Rhonda. You right, Rhonda? You first. Go ahead.
Of course I'm first. Always. Okay. Of course, I'm tickled that we're getting a new Soddy Daisy Middle School. The issue that I have is, I guess it's twofold. Number one, I don't know how this plan came about since I was never asked about it. I find that, and I've told others that I find that extremely disrespectful, not necessarily just for me, but as the representative for District 1. I've been there for 19 years, was born there. I'm now 66, almost 67 years old. I think I know that community better than anybody that was on this committee, or whether it's on the commission, the mayor, whoever. I know that district better than anyone, and I was never really asked about it. I was told what their plans were, and just let me give you a little background. The first thing that happened is Gino Shipley being the commissioner in Soddy Daisy, we met with Justin Witt, we met with Danny Floyd and a couple of other engineers at Soddy Daisy Middle School back a few months ago. And in that meeting, we decided that instead of renovating Soddy Daisy Middle School, that they needed a new school. We have a formula that if it cost over a certain percentage of what the school is worth, then you build a new school. So we were there building a new school. And so when we left, it was where the school was going to be. There's 35 acres there. We talked about it, where we could move the baseball fields, the football fields. So it came out that we would probably consider putting the school where the football field is, and then tearing the school down and putting the football field where the school is. Okay, and when I left there, that's what I thought. That's what I thought we were. I had discussed with the church there, them maybe giving us some property there. Is anybody that's ever been to Soddy Daisy Middle School? Tammy, I see you shaking your head. It's a nightmare getting in and out of that school. A 2-lane road, basically coming in and out with buses and all. It's a logistics nightmare for the buses. And so they were going to give us enough property, or I had discussed with them about giving us enough property to make a designated northbound lane, so we could get the buses out of the way and get some of the traffic out of the way to kind of keep the traffic moving along there. I also went to the city of Soddy Daisy and talked to them, and they were going to give us 12 feet on the other side of the road, so we could widen it even more, because there's no parking there, even though we have 35 acres. There's no parking there, and parents were always having to park up and down that road, and the fire marshal was always making them leave because there was only one lane in and one lane out, because traffic was on both sides. Traffic was always on both sides of the road. Okay, so left there. I'd done all that discussion with these other people. Then Justin tells me that one of the things that they looked at was closing Daisy Elementary. That was the first thing I heard. Blew me away, since both of my grandkids went there. It kind of went, whoa, where did that come from? Well, where are the kids going to go? To Allen, to Soddy? Well, here again, Tammy, Soddy is landlocked. It's the road on all 4 sides. There's nowhere to expand. And if you did expand it and put even more students there, where are the parents going to park? Now they already park. You say yes, they already park all the way, all over Soddy, all over the side. They block people's driveways. It's a nightmare. So that's not going to work. Allen Elementary, the way Soddy Daisy's grow, there's so much growth going on in Soddy Daisy, it's crazy. We're going to be the next East Hamilton, I'm afraid. It's a lot of construction going on. So I knew that if we put the kids up there before long, we're going to have 1,000-student elementary school, and I just don't think that's wise at all. So, okay, so that was kind of, okay, we're not going to do that. Then I go for a meeting with Justin. I think it was August the 2nd. I met with you. And they put this down in front of me. So I'm looking through here, and I see K through 8. Where did that come from? Where did this come from that I was not even asked about it? And so, I mean, I was just blindsided by it, and Justin, I said my piece when I was in his office that day about how I felt about it. And, okay, that rocked on. And then I'm not sure exactly, I think it was like on August the 15th, Gino called, and Justin had told me, he said, well, unless you and Gino are on board for this, we're not going to go public with it. Okay, fine. Well, Gino called me like on August the 15th and said, hey, can you come up here at the school and meet with me? I said, yeah, I'll get off about 2:30. I'll be up there. So I went up there, and an administrator from the high school was walking around showing me where all this construction was going to go. And I'm like, first of all, why is somebody from the school not showing me around? Why am I having to get an administrator from one of our schools to walk around and show me what the plan is? I'm sorry, but I've built, there are a lot of schools that have been built since I've been on this board for the last 19 years, and I have never felt so disrespected as a board member. To not even, I mean, this is a huge deal. When you're talking about doing something totally, totally different than anything that anyone had ever discussed with me, I don't really even have words for it. Because that was on the 15th, and then the press release was going to be on the 17th to announce it. I have all these people calling me, and I'm like, people, I'm as in the dark as you are. Now, they did walk me through and show me where they were going to build this building and where they were going to put this building and where they were going to move the playground and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. And I'm like, what about the traffic? When there's a football game, we don't even have enough places to park. We park all over the side of the hill. Here again, Tammy, you were saying yes or no. And now we're going to put another school up there? Okay, maybe we can squeeze it in on the hill up there. Maybe we can. I don't know. I'm still not convinced yet that we can. But where in the world are the parents going to park? And I'm just telling you all that so you understand that I'm just not on board with this at all, because I still don't know. And I was told that the traffic situation would be worked out. Well, nobody's ever told me about how they were going to work out the traffic. Because on Hyatt Road, anybody that's ever in Saudi Daisy out there that's listening, that's driven Hyatt Road, that is one of the most dangerous roads in Saudi Daisy, in my opinion.
What's the name of the road?
Hyatt, Hyatt, Hyatt Road. It is an extremely dangerous road. I don't care which end you go down, you go drive it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Matter of fact, there have been a lot of people killed on Hyatt Road. I don't know how the buses are going to navigate it, if we're going to use that way to in and out. Maybe they do already navigate it. I don't know if they do. God bless the bus drivers, all I'm saying. But, okay, and I don't want to settle, and I know what the thing is. I know we're going to only have a finite amount of money to do these schools, and I know we're going to try to check a lot of things off, but I am not going to sacrifice the residents of Saudi Daisy at the altar of just checking a box so we can get a lot of things done. I've been seeing the schools, I've been looking at the schools that have just been built, CSLA. Not only did they get a new school, they got a new high school. We didn't really even need another high school, but they got one. So I don't know why we're having to settle. And Tyner's getting a nice new school, and that's great. And they got everything they wanted, and I think it was like $20 million over budget or something, and they got the money to cover that. I do not know why the citizens of Saudi Daisy are not even being looked at to have the same consideration. And I know we're going to have these input from the community, but I'm telling you, I've been here long enough to know all these community meetings are about are to convince you that you want what they have planned.
Well,
Now, I'm sorry, Chris, I've been here a long time, and I understand. I don't need anybody to tell me what's going on. I'm not blind.
I didn't say nothing.
Okay, but anyway, let me finish. But anyway, we have been patient, and I've been told, Rhonda, you better settle for it. They might go to the next school on the list. Well, I tell you what, that happens. I've seen how this is done, and it seemed to work quite well. I'm going to tell the students of Saudi Daisy they need to walk out, because that seems to be a very effective tactic. So I'm telling you, I'm not going to sit by and just not even have because this was my plan. Had somebody asked me, first of all, I don't like having kindergartners on the same campus with 8th graders because they're going to share a common cafeteria. I don't like that. I know it works well for some schools, and that's great. But we have 35 acres sitting over at the middle school. We're getting ready to walk off and leave over there for later. I was told that we were going to save that property for an elementary school. Okay, so first we were going to close an elementary school. Now we're going to need another one. We're going to need another one in about 9-10 years, I was told. Okay, by the time we get in this school, that's going to be about 3 years down the road. So now we're talking about 6-7 years we're going to need another school. And you think we're going to get another school in 6 or 7 years more money? You've lost your mind. It's taken us years and years to get enough money for this school. So had I been asked, this was what I would like to have seen, like to see happen. It hasn't happened yet. We haven't gotten any money from the commission. But this is what I would like to see happen. if we're going to have a new elementary school in, say, the next 8, 9 years, whatever it's going to be, why don't we build a new elementary school on the football field of the middle school? Build a new elementary school, build it like we did Wallace Smith, like we did Harrison Elementary, like we did some of the other schools that we built with expansion in mind, knowing that we're going to have to add on to it with all the construction. Build a new elementary school there. Then, that way the elementary school won't have to be housed anywhere. The middle school can still go to their school. Renovate the elementary school for the middle school, which was on the table to begin with when we were initially going to close Daisy Elementary. Why not fix that school? Because what's going to happen when we get a new elementary school? You're going to have to move the kids of the newly renovated school into the new school and then renovate that one for the middle school anyway. So if we're going to put the middle school up there, that's fine. But I do not like all 3 schools being up there on the hill. There is no room. You can squeeze it all in up there, but that's like trying to put on a pair of tight jeans. I mean, you can get them on, but it's not the best idea sometimes. It's not pretty. So, but that's what I would like to see happen, to renovate that property down there for the middle school, but to build the elementary school first, and we were going to build a new school anyway because you were going to build a new middle school. So I don't know that there's that much difference in the money to be spent. And then you're going to renovate that school. Let's just renovate it for the middle school and build the new elementary school over on the other property, because if I do have some connections there with the church to try to get that land I don't know if they were going to donate it or whatever, but I do have a connection there, but that connection is not going to be there forever. And if we're not going to use it for a school, they won't do it. And I don't blame them. So that's just some food for thought, but that's just my feelings about it, and I want the people of Saudi Daisy to know that I said that I could be on board for it. And then, too, another thing that was put out to me was building the middle school at the end of the high school on the side by the softball field, and that's just not going to work. So, like I said I could be, but nobody's ever talked to me about the how we were going to alleviate all the traffic in there. And down Sequoia Road, you go to a high school football game, you better leave 45 minutes earlier. You will miss kickoff, because you cannot get into that school already because people are trying to find somewhere to park. It's just a nightmare. So I just want everybody to know it's not. Nobody ever called me back and told me how we were going to do anything about the traffic. And then when they said, well, we can put another entrance from Sequoia Road into the elementary school, I thought, that's funny. When I wanted to do that a few years ago, they said it couldn't be done. Now all of a sudden it can be done. But anyway, we had to buy more property in order to get an entrance to Daisy Elementary, which is where the entrance is to Daisy now. But anyway, I just want the people of Saudi Daisy to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that's it. And like I say, when we come and all get together, I think that we can have a much better plan than this one right here. And like I say, I will tell Mayor Want the same thing. I've known him since he was a little boy, and I don't care to talk to him. And I don't know who all was on this committee, but I don't know who they talked to. But there's a few things on here. If they think it's new, they're crazy. Because I'm telling you what, I've been knowing that CCA was going to be the Norman Park High School since Joe Connor and Chip Baker were on this school board, because that's been in works that long, so it's nothing new. So somebody's been having to feed this to some of these people, and it certainly wasn't this board member for the one in her district.
So thank you, Rhonda. I do want to say what I was going to say. I thought you were done, so I wasn't trying to cut you off. But what I was going to say was, just to clear this up, the working committee was not comprised. The mayor's working group was not comprised of the board at all. The only representation from the school board was Chairwoman Robinson, and then of course Superintendent Robertson was there as the superintendent. So just to clear that up, none of us on this dais currently at this time, minus Chairwoman Robinson, were a part of any of that conversation or that body. So just to clear that up from any district.
Mr. Jones, can I clear a couple of things up as well?
Well, that was true though, Justin.
I know.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's very true, and I just want to clear a couple things up from Ms. Sermon's comments. First of all, I hope you know well enough that I would never do anything to disrespect you. You're right. You say everything to me in private that you say out here, and I've always told you I appreciate that. I had meetings with each prior to this going out, and there were several of you that had concerns with things that were going in this. The point of this going out was not to say that each and every one of you agreed with everything in here. It was a starting point. And you know, to some of the concerns that were brought up, none of these projects are fully built out. That would be a huge waste of resources for us to do that if we're not going to approve them. And so putting the time into solving some of the issues that Ms. Sermon and I talked about in our meeting and several phone calls that we had leading up to this about, you know, for example, parking. We know parking is an issue at Soddy Daisy. We know that the entrance is an issue at Soddy Daisy. And so those things, if this gets approved, you know, what we talked about is if it's approved, those are things that would have to be worked out for this to be a viable option. So I just want to be clear, like, I think every one of you in our one-on-one meetings expressed a concern about something in this. And these recommendations are not all new. Was very clear about that as well. We have some that have been talked about in Hamilton County for 20 years. They were never presented as new ideas. This is a principled and consistent plan that allows us to get a lot of projects done and make sure that we're providing great educational opportunities for as many kids as possible. So just wanted to help clear what the role of the committee was.
Right, and so I was getting to that next. So to speak to also echo what Dr. Robertson was saying and what Mrs. Thurman is saying, I've said this from the beginning. I said it at the press conference. I'll say it this entire process. These are recommendations. That's all these are. Somebody took a year of their time, or some people took a year of their time and came up with some recommendations. At the very end of the day, the 10 of us present, 11 of us present all together, get the final say on what the facilities plan is for Hamilton County Schools, or what we will recommend to the superintendent and to the county commission. We can look at this and like it. We can look at this and not like it. We can look at this and like pieces of it. We can look at this and say chunk it off. That's the privilege of being the body, right? I do echo Mrs. Thurman, and I shared this with both Mrs. Robinson and Dr. Robinson. I too felt very disrespected in the process as a board member and as facilities committee chair. Because when you looked at the working group, and I know the decision of the working group wasn't let me just clear this. I know it wasn't Dr. Robertson's working group, right? So I want to clear that up. But I expressed that to him because he's my colleague in this work, along with Mrs. Robinson. But I felt very disrespected because Mr. Helton, who is the commission facilities chair committee member or chair, was on the working group. That's just how I feel about it. And I'm just being as transparent as I can be about it. And so I did not like that, but I know there wasn't a decision from the people that represented the district. But I want to share that too. I've already shared with them how I felt, and we've talked about that. But I think what I know is very distasteful about all of this to a lot of us is that this was given to us from some individual standpoints, kind of like, oh yeah, well, this is really great, let's do it. Without knowing what we hear on a daily basis from constituents across this district. I had a District 1 constituent call me on the way to, I forgot where I was going, something school related. Oh, I know it was about student success planning, but she was from District 1. She talked to me for 30 minutes. I was glad to talk to her because I don't know the area that way. But some of the same concerns that Rhonda brought up, she brought up about the road and the traffic and a lot of things of that nature. And so we do get calls from other areas because when people are wanting to bring, I mean, we got emails from every area. So I just want to share that, like, I want people to understand we're here to talk about how the recommendations, what the next steps are for conversation. I don't want people to feel like, and I can only speak for as long as I'm facilities committee chair, but I don't want people to feel like when we do come out into the committee and hear from you that it's gonna be a rubber stamp thing, because I've made it perfectly clear as committee chair to both Chairwoman Robinson, to Dr. Robertson, and even to Vice or Deputy Mayor McClendon, that I'm not rubber stamping anything. That's just how I feel about it, because we all have concerns about our areas. We all know things, and we want to make a priority and a good plan, but we cannot, I cannot, in good conscience, spend my last 3 years on the school board rubber stamping stuff. I didn't do it for previous years, and I ain't about to start. So that's all I have to say about this, and I'm gonna go ahead and say my little bit about District 5 and the recommendation there. I didn't get calls either against or for the District 5 recommendation. What I take from that in my district, because my district is very vocal, is that they're willing to explore what that could look like for those schools. That's all I can take from that. So, and that, though, I'm sorry, those schools are the reinvestment in Brainerd and Dalewood. But I didn't get calls saying, oh, that's bad, let's not do that. And I didn't get calls saying, yes, that's awesome. I'm just being very honest. But what I take from that, having been on the board now 8.5 years, is that means they're willing to explore what that could look like. I told Superintendent Robertson that I am willing to explore what that looks like. I am. Don't mean I'm saying yes or no. I'm willing to explore it. So I just want to say that just to clear that up, because I've heard people say, oh, I've heard a lot of things about District 5. And I'm like, well, they sure ain't call their representative, and they call me for everything else. I'm just being very true about that. So I have not heard the things that other people have heard about 5, and that just doesn't sound like my folks, okay? They don't mind telling me nothing. So just clearing that up. Before you use District 5 for your scapegoat, do not. Because they're not saying it to me. And I don't think they're ashamed or scared to do that. So that's all I have to say about that. And then I think Dr. Robertson wants to say something, and then we have Mr. Connor coming up, and Mr. Perez is next. After Mr.
I
Connor.
promise I'm not going to say something after every one of you talks. But I do want to clear up 2 things. One, I would like to avoid this getting turned into a Mayor Womp thing. This was our working facilities group, right? Second thing, I know you didn't agree with why you weren't on that committee, but can I explain the way I explained to you why it was the right decision? Because when you say County Commission Facilities Chair was on it, but you weren't, your role as the chair of this committee is very different than the role of the facilities chair on the county commission. You've got to now lead this body in a discussion.
So I got to clean up the mess that y'all made.
That's exactly, if that's how you want to put it, that's
No, I'm just saying. I'm just
but that's
saying.
right. And if you were on this
So
committee.
I feel like I had an even bigger responsibility to be there.
Right, but if you were on this committee and the recommendations came out and you were part of it, you couldn't effectively lead this committee.
And that's fair.
And
Which we
so
talked
it
about
was
that.
not a disrespect thing. It was a strategic setting you up to lead this group that can then go to the full board.
And I'm just going to strategically hold those accountable who did it, and I wasn't there. And we talked about
and we
this.
agreed to disagree.
And we
then.
agreed, right. And we talked about it. Mr. Connor?
So first off, let me just say thank you to the legislature for changing the laws so that I was able to participate and come back from a field trip with my daughter, which is awesome. And then I'm going to go down a similar path, but it's my responsibility to do that and say it out loud for the constituents of District 6, whom I've had the privilege of getting to talk to, many, many, many of them. And to say, I agree with what you said, Rhonda, about the ability for us to have been talked to throughout the course of this process. And I recognize that with the Sunshine Laws, there's not the opportunity for us to meet in this open meeting to discuss things that may not have happened. I'm sure there were thousands of ideas that were on the board before this was done. But I stand by that we could have been met with at different times to talk about specifically the things that were going to happen in District 6 or in District 1 or what have you. I also, and I've said, everything I'm saying I've said to Dr. Robertson, so I guess I'm following in 2 of Rhonda's footsteps. And that is, I think that the presentation manner with a rolling it out speaks a little bit to what Caritza said also. It was the way that we presented this in a grand press conference was more, look what we've done, less, look at these ideas we're going to talk about. I think that if we had presented this in a full board meeting as this is what we're thinking about, we're here to work with this full board, I think that it would have received a little bit of a different, not saying what's in it, but I think that we would have received it in the manner that we've spoken about and that you wanted it delivered in, that this is a conversation starter. So that being said, I just have to get into a couple of different details on here. The first one is, of all the places that it affects, closing 2 elementary schools in District 6 is probably the biggest pill to swallow of this whole thing. Not just for me as the representative of District 6, but for my friends here in their green shirts and the hundreds of their friends that were at my first meeting, and then continuing down the line. And even, talk about what Rhonda said, it's not a set decision that Norwell Park goes anywhere. It's not a set decision that CCA has to move anywhere. And that's something that needs to be said out loud, because again, this is not set in stone. This is hopefully a conversation starter, but not the conversation ender. Couple of points that people have brought up to me that, again, I know that this isn't the full scope of where we're going to end all this, but Rhonda said the parking at Saudi Daisy. We're talking about the DuPont property and the idea of how we're going to push this many students into one location. So that is something that is absolutely going to be paramount in our conversation point, is traffic patterns. And right there in Hickson Pike with a brand new, as my dad likes to call them, waggles, brand new waggles there. And so what I'm getting to is the point of this is a conversation starter. I know I'm repeating myself, but I want to make that point the most clear, that this isn't where we're going to end. There may be points of this that are great and end up being on the board, but this isn't where we're going to end. And I want to make sure that my constituents and all of Hamilton County know that this isn't the done deal, the done map. And then I will end with one last thing, and I'm glad you said it before. I won't make you talk again. I do have to say the one thing I am really happy about coming from Dr. Robertson is that every time that we've turned around, he has stood behind his proposal. Whether we agree with it or not, I have a lot of respect for the fact that you stand behind and you won't let your name not be put with it.
Hold on. So Marco, Faye.
About Rivermont.
Oh, and you. Oh,
But I was going to say something about
This will
Rivermont.
follow
to see
into
this
that?
stuff. Yeah, I was just going to ask a question.
Rivermont as well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on the agenda this time, there's $1 million on there for Rivermont on our agenda for Thursday. And if we're talking about this school, do we need to be voting on it? What's that all about?
Yeah, we've had, that project's coming out of ARPA funds from the county, and
Yeah.
had some conversations with county and specifically David Sharp about how to move forward. I think we can approve it if that's what the board desires to do, and start making some plans alongside as we have this discussion. So you're right. That's something we talked to
talk about Thursday. I
Commissioner
wanna-
Sharp about to figure out, but it is on the agenda. It may come off the agenda. It may stay on the agenda, but it's a good
Okay.
point.
This was odd
Thank
to
you,
me.
Rhonda. Madam Chair, may I say 2 comments, just 2 sentences back to that? Rhonda, I thank you for bringing that up, because I did say in my meetings about just that, until this board votes to close the school, change the school, or do something else, I'm going to act like that school and those students need everything that they deserve, and I'm going to keep voting to. So, thank you.
There's no sense putting $1 million in if we're going to move it. So, okay.
Marco.
Thank you. So I have a couple questions, but based on this, we can go back and forth on how this is why I've been asking. So what's happening with facilities, right? And then I show up late. Just because it has been something that obviously is very important. I will rescue this part of it a couple times in the press conference, more than a couple times, which is comment that's common, but the comment was made, we're from here. So I'm going to speak as somebody who's not from here, who's been here in this community for 12 years and feels very much a part of this community in those 12 years. But in the 12 years I've been here, I don't remember, I won't say it hasn't happened, but I don't remember this much intention behind saying, we're going to go do this proactively. So a lot of what I've seen is reactive to crisis after crisis after crisis. So I want to say that I do applaud the interest in proactive pursuit and saying we're gonna do this. I also recall, because I don't think I was in favor of it, but I recall that we voted on kind of a strategy for facilities. And in that strategy, there was consolidation. I think that was on my first month or 2 months, so I probably stayed quiet. At that time, Alpine Crest was one of my schools, and for many reasons, my heart is very much with that school, and I do think there is a value to community schools. But I think that was kind of a strategy that was set forth. Not to say that that's perfect. I do remember, because that was where my heart was then, that I mentioned either we move forward in one direction, but I don't want us to not invest in the schools that we have students in, where it might still be 5, 10, 15, 20 years before actually a move happens. And one, it's a beautiful school. Rivermont's a beautiful school. I am not as familiar with DuPont and Hickson, but I imagine that their communities are also incredible. But you know, we either have to move forward in one direction, or we have to make sure that we're making the investments in those schools where they are. So to my questions, I think of all this, you know, sometimes what's lost when you're not in the mix of how these decisions are made is that at the end of the day, the county commission holds the money, and they're very involved, and the mayor's very involved in how it happens. In our budget, which I also happen to be out of town for, because I thought it was going to pass pretty easily, and I think it was in June, in a discussion, we had a reduction of $6 million for facilities and maintenance. When I look at this, is this totally not, and I heard a number online while I was watching it of, by the county taking on that, there will be $60 million available to us. And I'm actually a finance guy, but I don't get that math, how 6 million becomes 60. But
Red 7.
what was that?
Red 7.
Is that,
I put it all on Red 7.
is that what it works? I always call it magic money, because to me it's magic money. It's like all of a sudden this money's there. So I'm seeing you shake your head. So can you speak to that? I've got 2 questions. After that, I'll have a second one. But I want to make sure that we're not neglecting a lot of work that has to be done in all of our schools, including those that currently have students, because of the potential promise of another one.
So tied together but separate. Tied together in that money that was taken out of the budget last spring will be likely tied to the bond issue that goes into funding these. It's separate in that the money that's generated from that $6 million would be set aside for the type of maintenance upgrades that you're talking about. So
Okay.
we have a long list of stuff
Yeah,
that we
because
need
we have
to
those
take.
those needs on the mountain as
Yeah.
well, and
It's essentially would be a quick injection of funds to, I was talking to some principals yesterday. We did a round table with principals to get input on, what they're thinking about this. And that was the exact question that I got from a principal. Does this mean that all the money is going towards this and my building isn't going to get painted? And I was like, no, that's $6 million. It's going to be bonded out. That will be used for maintenance. Now, if you remember in that same conversation last spring, there was the understanding that it may take a little while for that money to get bonded. So if you think about it, if we go and it doesn't get bonded until next spring, essentially half of that $6 million didn't get used. And so the county commission clearly said if there are projects, you need to bring them. So we already have a number of projects. It's going to be a pretty significant number that we'll plan to take to the county commission probably in October to tap into those funds that haven't been used yet. So I say together in the bond issue, separate in the use of the money.
And I do agree with Mr. Connor. I mean, at the end of the day, because so much of this may take years, our students are in those schools today. So, so I feel we need to make sure that we are serving the students that are in the schools today while we plan for the future, whatever that means. The second question I have, and I think this pertains less to us. You know, I call it magic money, but there was a promise of, and we're going to do all this, you know, without having to raise taxes. Are we aware, like, is the money available for this? Or do we know that this, or are we having a lot of people angry? And the truth is, behind the scenes, we don't even have money for this. So I don't know where the money is.
Yeah,
for
I
this.
mean, I think that's a conversation the mayor's having with county commission and working through it. I know that there were some very intentional things in county budget last year that set us up or set them up to be able to do a much larger bond issue than
Okay.
what's been done in the past.
Okay, so we do anticipate that once there is agreement as to how we're moving forward, the funds are there for us to be able to achieve this. All right, those are my two questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Robinson,
Okay, thank
physically
you.
present.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This says recommendations, and I take it for face value. It's just that we need a lot more information to make a decision. A new school, that's great. Children will be proud of it. The teachers will be proud. Hopefully, it'll be more economical. But at what point do you destroy an existing school as far as economically feasible? And the traffic pattern, I have heard concerns about Hickson Pike. I just want the majority of the solutions laid out before dirt is ever moved. So that's,
Yeah, I agree.
those are my concerns. Thank you.
Mr. King.
Well, District 9 isn't in the 1 through 3. It's got a few things happening 4 through 7. But my concern, to make a educated and a heartfelt vote, which I think we have to do that. We have to use our brain and our heart when we go to do these. I need to ask, are you going to be on all these meetings? So I'm out of town on September 28th, but I want to either via YouTube or Zoom be a part of that meeting. And on all these other dates, are we going to be able to get those streaming where if we can't be there in person,
I think we can stream them. I don't know that we could set it up where you could interact. Like, we could definitely put it.
Well, I can do that via text if
Yeah.
needed, so,
We can, I say that, I'm pretty sure we can.
okay.
My
So,
community's
so
not on
Mr.
the
King,
list.
Mr. King skipped on to my next section, but that's fine. Okay. I just want to make sure before we get into that piece, because that is the most important piece about what we're going to do next. Has everyone had a chance to share any feedback or concerns as it relates to the plan? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Carissa. You know, I've lived in Hickson all my life. I was in the first graduating class of Alpine Crest. Rhonda, don't say a word.
I went there too, but much behind it.
But I was to go full 6 years, and so I left Alpine Crest in 1965. They added those kind of the southeast end of the building, added a couple of grades, and so I went there all 6 years. What a great place, great memories. But this is not new. You know, I spent 20 years at the YMCA, and I can remember early in my career at the YMCA, been retired now from the Y for 5 years, so 25 years ago. The school system and the YMCA had several conversations way back then about buying the YMCA property and building a big elementary school on that property. And then a few years ago, when we spent, I think, $600,000-700,000 on the MGT study that I said at the time would sit on somebody's desk and gather dust, and we'd never do anything with it. They came back and recommended that very thing, that we close some elementary schools and combine one big school over there in the Hickson area. Hickson Pike, that area of Hickson Pike is not the congested area, and I travel there 3 or 4 times a day. It's toward Northgate is where the big congested area is, and the proposal to close some elementary schools and build a world-class elementary school there on that property at DuPont. You know, that property was given to us by what used to be the old DuPont. It's in Vista or something else now, but to me it just makes all the sense in the world. And I know change is hard. I get that, and people that live close to their school, whether it be Alpine or Hickson Elementary, I know that's hard. I get that. But I can remember several years ago when Middle Valley Elementary was built and Gans was closed, and we had these same difficult conversations and upset folks. And I believe if you went back now and you talked to some of those folks, they're glad it happened. And I know it's already been said, and it'll continue to be said. We're probably never going to come up with a plan that's going to make everybody happy. It just ain't going to happen. It's just not. So I like what the task force came out with their recommendations, and have given us a very good starting point to start having these conversations. And some tough decisions are going to have to be made, and everybody's not going to be happy. They're just not. You know, I've heard many people say, you know, yeah, we got too many schools, we need to close some, but don't close mine. You know, well, so some hard decisions are going to have to be made. But this is not new. I bet this has been talked about for 25 years, about those elementary schools out in the Hickson area. So I'm just thrilled that we're finally starting to talk about it, and maybe that fancy piece that MGT gave us that I said would gather dust, maybe we're finally dusting it off, and we're going to start moving. And we have some already. So I appreciate what the task force is doing and will do, and we need to hear from the community. I know people have concerns and great ideas, and you know, I had not heard until you, Ron, tonight about you're going at some point you're going to have to build a new elementary school in Saudi. So maybe that's what you're recommending is the best thing. So those are the kind of conversations we need to have, and then we're going to have to make some hard decisions, and not everybody's going to be pleased. Change is hard. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Black, and then Ms. Thurman.
Hi. I think I can objectively say that District 11 not only has the most schools, but is involved in the most of this plan and being touched in different areas between Lookout Valley and Clifton Hills. And but I talked to Dr. Robertson after this came out. We had a hard conversation. But my reaction when I opened this and read through the whole document when it was given to me is I was very surprised that there was nothing in there to address the overcrowding at Howard. We've spent the last year talking about, and there's been newspaper articles, and the community's been talking about it, and every single neighborhood meeting I go to is talking about it. And there was nothing here for a solution. And I felt like it was a gross oversight to spend that much time and effort on this document, which let me echo Mr. Perez and say, and I have said this from the beginning, from when I was running in my campaign, that I wanted to have a plan of everything that we were going to do before we started moving the pieces, so that we weren't doing Band-Aids, which is what has happened over the last however many years. And so I appreciate having a vision and a plan of like what all we want to do over the next 10 years to address this issue, but also not including something in here to address the overcrowding at Howard, for me was a gross oversight. So I have to start there, and I said this to you. But I want everybody to hear that I've said this. And I would like to, because of that, I would like to add a Howard meeting to this schedule so that you all can hear from the Howard community the way that I do as their representative when I'm there. So whatever we have to do, I'll move whatever I need to move to be there, whatever's convenient for y'all. But all of the conversations and all of the contact that I've gotten is, please don't make our elementary schools too big. Please don't make our elementary schools too big. Just because we have an elementary school in Hamilton County that has 1,200 kids in that, is it working? Is it what's best for students? And that is real concern. I would like to see, and I know that it's been asked for in the past, like, what is the sweet spot number where we can fully offer everything that we can offer to an elementary school, fully staffed and all of that, and also keep it as much of a community as we can. I'm hearing from educators that when you get above 6 classrooms per grade, like, you can't work in a team anymore. Like, you don't even have a kindergarten team. You have 2 kindergarten teams when there's more than 6 classrooms in a grade. And so there's not even consistency across a grade level because you can't even get that many people into a planning period. And so, but I did not grow up here, but I moved here 18 years ago, and we were having the same conversations when I moved here 18 years ago. But I also understand that as much as we love our very, very, very small schools, and we love the environment that provides for our children, I think we have to acknowledge that we don't live in a community who is willing to continue to pay for those very small schools. And we haven't for a long time, which is how we got to this discussion, because all of this maintenance has been deferred for the last 20 years. And so we have to find a balance. That's what my goal is in participating in this committee is, how do we find a balance between what the realistic financial prospects are, what can we maintain, and what is best for kids, and what is best for educators and students in the building, and how, because I'll be honest with you, as a parent, if I think back to when my kiddos were 5 heading to kindergarten, and to send a 5-year-old in kindergarten into a building where they're going to be one of 1,200 kids is an absolutely terrifying prospect, because I think parents feel like they're just scared that their kids aren't going to be seen and known in the same way and served, and that they have the chance to fall through the cracks in the same way that they are in small schools. So my goal is to find a balance between, okay, how do we renovate these schools and build schools that can provide everything that we need to provide for our kids, that, updates the facilities that we need to update, serves the communities that we need to serve and the population growth, but also how do we do that in a way that's best for our students? So I would like to get with y'all and get a Howard community meeting on this schedule, because I do think you need to hear from the community. But I appreciate all of the feedback that I've gotten. People can contact me, email me. I'm here, but I'm going to be here through the whole thing. This was part of the reason that I wanted District 11 to have good, dedicated representation, and that's why I started all of this, because I knew that this conversation was happening, and this was the time to do this. But I hope, like Mr. Smith said, we're not going to have a plan that makes everybody happy, and we're not going to have a plan that makes everybody feel good. And change is hard, but I think for me, my goal is to find that balance. And I do want to listen to our community members when they say, it's too big. When you get more than 6 classrooms in a grade, it's too big for an elementary, for little kids. So.
Ms. Thurman.
Yeah, first of all, Joe Smith, we didn't need the MGT report to say we needed to combine DuPont and Rivermont. That's been on the works ever since I've been on the board, 19 years. Because I was shocked when we were going to combine them. Next thing I knew, we were renovating Rivermont Elementary School, and we didn't, I was like, what? I thought we were going to tear it down. Remember that?
I do remember that.
But
That was
whoa.
at the same time of discussion with Hillcrest, Harrison, and Lakeside.
Right, that's right. And so
Under
that blew me away. So that's been in the works for a long time. One question, she brought up Howard Connect. I thought we were discussing about moving that when we had this discussion before, and now it's kind of like crickets. You don't hear anything about that. Just
So
what happened
If you remember
with that?
last year when this conversation, kind of boiled over, we had a community meeting at Howard Connect. We decided we needed to look at some alternative things to ease crowding at Howard. So we took some steps that we said, and if you remember then, like we said, they were short-term steps.
Yep.
And when I said short-term steps, we were talking about would help for the next year to 2 years, but we would need to do something more drastic from there. So we opened some classrooms at Howard Connect to Howard. We started Opportunity High, which we've already identified, students that could take advantage of that. The Choice Academy is something that's in supplemental budget at Howard that will help. One of the main concerns was the cafeteria, and so over the summer we renovated and opened up. I think it's somewhere around 80 seats. It may be 100, but I'll call it 80 to help with overcrowding. Ms. Black is right that is not a long-term solution. There needs to be something in it, and I think it would be appropriate to have a meeting about Howard. I would recommend that it comes after, because depending on some of these other recommendations, there could be implications to that conversation. So if Chairwoman Jones wants to add a meeting, I would recommend adding it at the end.
Well, I guess my question is, I thought we had that meeting, and I thought that we just had these discussions, and that's why I'm just wondering what happened, because I know that they were needing some more space there at Howard, and I just
Yeah, we
I guess
decided at the
wondered
time
what happened.
not to do anything with Howard.
now
Connect.
they've opened the gym up though, correct?
Yeah, well, for some use, that gym is,
You talking about the old Bowls gym? That's not open.
I think that there's some people using for storage or something in the top,
Yeah,
but
but that's not open for
it's a
student.
bad, it's
No.
not
Okay.
used for
Participation,
students.
Okay.
It's not
But
usable.
again, Howard, sitting at, I think, somewhere around 1520 or 1525 on the 20th day. So their enrollment is steady with where they were last year, which is a positive thing, because they have grown like in the hundreds over the past 2 cycles. So there's at least a steadying out. But by opening up the Choice Academy, opening up Opportunity High, and those 3 classrooms in Howard Connect, we're able to do some creative scheduling. That the real main concern was the cafeteria, which we addressed. Now, the Howard Connect conversation, again, is one that, depending on how these other conversations go, there may be implications there that would provide some insight to how do we solve long-term, the Howard overcrowding issue.
Okay, so
Essentially, we put a Band-Aid on it last year. What?
yeah, we did talk about long-term. We talked about short-term goals there, knowing that we'd have to make some long-term decisions, and then this is what's been done, Rhonda. So this is where we are. We hadn't gotten to, or there has not been recommendations for the more intermediate to long-term.
Well, that's what I thought we had that, and then we were gonna go to that, and I hadn't heard anything else. I just
Yeah,
didn't
we
know what it
hadn't.
was.
And to be honest, I was I was waiting on the plan because I thought I did too think maybe something would have been in the plan. But we can't do that. So what we will do, Jill, is so we'll move on into the next section, which is, like I said, the most important section. We will second most important section. We will talk about facilities planning next steps. So prior to this meeting, there was some conversation about a proposed tentative schedule of what it would look like for community meetings going forth, and based on the recommendations that are in this working group recommendation packet, and of course to hear from the community, because we know when we go to hear from the community, we're going to hear recommendations that will be added or suggested. And I will say this, as we get calls, and for me, as I was receiving calls from District 6, I had a person share a recommendation with me that I had never thought of. Like, I didn't think about it, and it was more based on a community need. And they were kind of like, well, do we have to all go into that building, or can we kind of stick Red Bank to Red Bank? Could we go to Red Bank Elementary? I mean, that was something once again, not my community, not as well in depth in that, but I never thought about that, right? And so there are going to be things that are going to come up. We, of course, like today I was taking notes. I asked that the board members, when you go to your meetings, that you take notes, so that when we come back, we will do that. I will try my best to be at all of them. However, some of them I'm already out of town for work, so I will not be there. So I will too be trying to find a way to watch it on, if we're able to do that, or just catch up with you all when I miss your meetings. But with that being said, we do have a tentative schedule that we have in front of you, this document right here, that actually addresses the areas and the schools that were in the working group recommendations. So what I will ask Jill for you is, if you allow us to go through this list of meetings, and then we can get with
Dr. Ware?
Kate. Oh Jesus, I'm seeing the other Kate. Never mind, don't matter. Kate Skonberg. We're gonna get with Kate. We can get with Kate Skonberg and Dr. Robertson, and she can get with Dr. Ware, and she'll get with you, and we can look at what will be the best time for her as administrator of the school, Dr. Robertson's schedule, because all of this we had to kind of try to figure. Well, y'all know we had to work around trying to make sure that everyone was able to be at their area's meeting. So Kate, we'll get with Kate, and Kate will get with you all, and we will work on that meeting. Is that okay, Kate? I know I just kind of put you on. I didn't even know you was there, so I looked back after I was trying to say your name. But we'll get with her and get that schedule for you, okay? But we do have some meetings coming up. This is a tentative schedule, and so I want to make sure, Dr. Robertson, were we able to confirm that everybody could be at their respective?
I believe that everybody confirmed, but if I'm incorrect, somebody correct.
Did everybody confirm?
Mm-hmm.
So I got left out. I'm curious about that.
Well, I mean, we can do one if we need to be honest.
Yeah,
Yours is
most
just
people, I haven't
smaller.
gotten pushback,
Yeah.
everyone, but I equally want our community to be heard about their concerns.
And we can add.
Okay.
Yeah.
About
So
anything.
Kate will get with you, and we'll get that done. Thank you so much,
Maybe
Kate.
it's not as urgent as some of the other ones, but my community matters to you.
It does. We do want to make sure that every
It's up for debate.
and eventually, as we work on it to the next phases, Mr. King will be coming up in that realm as well. So this is the schedule. If everybody was in the church, they always say all hearts and minds are clear about this. About this, we will. I will give Dr. Robertson the okay for them to publish this.
Make sure clear.
Okay.
So we're gonna add
A Howard meeting,
and I would
yes.
say / Howard Connect meeting
Yeah.
sometime after.
So that would be
24th.
after
Yes.
October 24th.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we'll get with Mr. Perez to add a Signal Mountain meeting
Mm-hmm.
at his convenience.
Mhm.
And
Right. Okay. Is that good to
Yeah.
start that after the 24th?
May I also add, and I mentioned this to Dr. Robertson before we started, I don't
sir.
think the Hickson location, that's a good location. So I think you need to explore a better
better
place
location.
to have that. All they have is the cafeteria that's very, very small, and I just don't think that's a good
we'll
location.
find a new location.
Okay.
Okay, and just do keep in mind too, board, some of them do have a TBD by it, so like that's a to be determined. So there's flexibility there with that. But we will start these meetings The first one will be Thursday, September 28th, for District 11, with
One of my meetings.
the first of one. She will be having 2 meetings. So District 11, the first meeting about the expansion of East Side and East Lake Elementary and the Clifton Hill, all of that. Thursday, September 28th from 6 to 7:45, tentatively at the East Lake Academy cafeteria. That looks pretty secure. That's set. So that is set.
There's a good parking.
For East Lake Academy cafeteria, and board member Black will be there. Tuesday, October the 3rd, board members Smith and Connor, all new elementary school in the heart of Hickson discussion. That is, all of these are from 6 to 7:45. That location is to be determined, but just be paying attention to the Hamilton County websites, social media, to the board member sites, all of that, because we have little graphics. I've been seeing our little graphics coming out. We're trying to get with it. So you'll know what that is. Wednesday, October the 4th is the Renovate Gateway into Flagship Campus recommendation. That is to be determined as well. Tuesday, October 17th is Reinvest in Brainerd High School. That's to be determined in Brainerd Cafeteria, but I'm okay with that location. I think that works for size. And then, of course, Tuesday, October 24th is the Soddy Daisy discussion, Soddy Daisy middle discussion.
But it's going to be at Soddy Daisy High School, notice.
Yes, ma'am. It's going to be at Soddy Daisy High School, either in the library or the cafeteria, so stay tuned, but it's in that building, okay? And after that, we will be sending out notification for the Howard and Howard Connect meeting, okay? And then we'll once Mr. Perez lets us know what's going to be for him.
We can be one later.
We'll do that as well.
I mean, we can do that one between.
I just want our community to be informed.
We'll get with Mr. Perez. and
Okay.
see.
So that is the proposed schedule. We will be coming out, and there's a format for that. Our systems FACE department is what we call them, but it's Family and Community Engagement for you all, the layman's in the acronym is Family and Community Engagement. That team will be supporting us in these efforts, and Hamilton County staff as well, as we have these meetings to make sure that we're hearing from everyone, getting their input, and being able to bring that back to us as well. So we do have people that are going to be helping facilitate to make sure that everybody's being heard and their thoughts are being shared. I see Rhonda being.
Well, I just wanted to
Okay.
tell you just one thing about the Red Bank schools you were talking about, that stuff you didn't know. Red Bank Elementary School is not in Red Bank, just for the record.
Oh, no. That was
Okay.
that's what somebody from
No,
District
no,
6
no,
called
no.
me about. Oh, okay.
No,
You
I'm
know,
just,
I don't
I'm
know.
telling you this because you're on the facilities, just so you know.
Gotcha.
So, because that discussion will come up, but Red Bank Elementary should have been called Mountain Creek Elementary or something. It
Yeah,
should
and that's
have-
what they were
it's
saying. They were
not-
pointing out how we got moved out of the city as
That's
well,
right.
but they were saying the communities are
That's right.
still
Just
somewhat
wanted,
the
just
same.
wanted you
so
to know
how
that
we
because a
can
lot
be-
of people say, well, you do have another school in Red Bank. No, they don't.
They
Red
really
Bank's not
don't.
there.
Right.
So Alpine's the only one. Just wanted you to know that.
So, that's that. Any questions about the meeting, Mr. Connor?
So thank you, Rhonda, because that is absolutely true. To start with, just to comment on your comment that if we close Alpine Crest and Rivermont, we would be taking away the only elementary school in Red Bank city limits, and we would be taking away another school that is Red Bank zoned. So, good point. Question that, since this meeting is setting everything up, I want to make sure that we say out loud how people can participate. And so I want to make sure that we're clear, and I'm asking the question. These meetings at these different locations will be done the exact same way we do every other meeting on YouTube, where the general public can get on our YouTube channel and watch them.
Yeah, so I confirmed that to Mr. Keene's earlier question and sent him a text message. We'll live stream them.
Okay.
There won't be the ability to interact, but there will be the ability. So,
But they can text Ben
yeah, they can text Ben.
And that's fine. I
and
get that a
Carissa
lot.
and whoever else. I mean, they, just saying.
Chairwoman, do you want to run through what the agenda?
Yeah, I
of those
was gonna go
meetings
through
looks
that.
like?
So,
Can I finish just
go
one
ahead.
last? I want to make sure also that if you double checked, if there is a meeting that somebody can't be a part of as a board member, we will be able to zoom into it as well.
You'll
If-
get on live stream, but you won't be able to
but
interact.
would not be able to interact. Okay. And then the last thing I want to say is I know that we've got different board members listed here, but there are things that overlap, specifically the third meeting. Chairwoman Robinson, it's in her district, the Gateway campus, but that has implications that we've heard about. Yeah. How it connect. We've heard about all kinds of
anybody
things.
yeah, you can come to whatever you want to come
And
to.
I'm gonna to say that, but I want again, I'm just stating things on record for the general public to make sure that they know where they can be and be involved and how they can have their voices heard. And I also just want to say that, you know, I know, Chris, I've talked with you. I got a little bit ahead of the game and started holding some meetings because of my friends that are in the audience here wanted to have their voices heard already. And so I am also having a meeting at Rivermont on the day before this Rivermont one to hear from the specifically the families there. I've been trying to go to the different people. So just if anybody wants to come and specifically talk about Rivermont, we'll be there at 6 p.m. on the 2nd of October, which is the day before. So hopefully I'll be bringing a lot of great information to this first meeting. Thank you for the time.
Okay, you're welcome. So the agenda, I'm sorry, Marco?
So one last comment on my part, because I think it's important, again, and this is for the public to understand. I think there is sometimes this idea that we've been working all this stuff behind the scenes. I actually feel this board really respects sunshine law, so we can't have these discussions privately. We have them publicly. So sometimes we are informed along with the public out of respect to the public. We're not machining things behind the scenes and then surprising you with what we came up with. We're having these committee meetings. So hence, again, the repetition of why Caritza's like, see, we finally had our committee meeting. Like you, some of us have been sitting here saying, well, what's going on? We want to be made aware. And so we become aware with you, which is why to us, these discussions following up matter very much, because it's not until we've been made aware. And unfortunately, the way it works, and especially if it's a big public release, is that it feels like all of this has been prepared and you all just found out. We too are finding out of respect to you all as our community. So I want that to be known, and now comes the work of doing all that. So so thank you all, and please be patient with us as we do this work. But ideally, the goal is our students will have excellent facilities worthy of the people of Hamilton County. So.
And so, just really quickly, the agenda that for those meetings will be, of course, a welcome and a presentation starting out, and then we'll have table discussions, because I like those kinds of things. Okay, I like seminars. I like to sit down and talk to people intimately, get their information. But table discussions, and there will be a note catcher at there at those tables, and then there'll be open comments for people to be able to speak as well, and you'll sign up during your small group to make your open comment, okay? And we want to, then we're going to close and thank you. We like to do things decent and in order, be respectful of people's times. The meetings are from 6 to 7:45, so we want to make best use of that time from 6 to 7:45, okay? Hopefully we won't have to have some more, but we probably will have to have some more meetings, but just make sure that when people are coming to these meetings, I would like to ask the community to come with your thoughts in mind about what you want to say. Be willing to step up and step back, and that means allow others to talk and share as well, right? Don't dominate the conversation. But lastly, know that we really do want to hear from you, and people are taking notes, and people will be walking around and listening to you, your board members and Hamilton County staff. But we want to make the best use of our time in these meetings, because we want to be respectful of you all, because you work here all day long, and then you come to a meeting with us, and we worked all day long too, and we're coming to a meeting with you all. So yeah, that's what the meeting's going to look like, okay?
Ms. Jones, I'd encourage the public also when they come to the meetings, not just to, come to say
Rant.
negative things, but to have ideas. I mean, I've
Yeah.
heard several of you, and I've talked to several of you individually of things that, that could be potential improvements to the plan, or things that we haven't thought of. Maybe it's a new location or whatever it is.
We
come
want it to be
help us
solutions
work through
focused.
this.
Kind of like how and honestly, I'm very proud of us. I want to say they're very proud of my board peers today, because I do feel like we came ready with to share how we felt, but also with solutions to things, or to be able to say how we're going to move forward. So that's what we're trying to do here: be productive in our meetings for the benefit of our children. And yeah, because I have to get home to a little one. We all do. Oh, Mr. King.
So, give me an idea, ballpark, when are all these decisions needing to be made?
When we
I
make.
don't think there's a timeline. I mean,
That's what
what I hope to hear from, county commissions that, I would say by the end of this year, first of the new year, so December, January, that there's some more information about the funding, which is important. And I would hope that this board could come to a place around that same time where some decisions would be made. What is that, from day one of, if we know a project's going on, it's gonna take 18 months to 2 years minimum to get a project up and running, from the day you say, this board says go. And so, what this plan is, everybody's asked me, well, 3 year, in our minds, day one starts the day after funding is approved and y'all have approved projects.
And the reason I'm asking, I know it'd be good to know before our next budget has to be submitted.
Right.
So that was my concern.
Well, this concludes the facilities meeting. You get 9 minutes back.
Thank you, public, for being present.
Thank you.